Hello everyone, it's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland reviewer, and I'm here to review Cold Pursuit. Because you know it's February, so we need a new Liam Neeson's movie. And I know there's a lot of controversy around this film. Still wanted to go see this. It was getting pretty decent reviews, and I was excited to see it. I thought the trailer was interesting compared to... It had an interesting concept of, like, this snowplow man trying to take revenge against these, like, mobsters for killing his son. And boy, does this movie have a lot more to it than what that trailer leads on. There's a lot going on in this film, and Hans-Peter Moland, who's the director of this film, and Frank Baldwin, who wrote this film, created a very interesting and different kind of action thriller than you were probably expecting going into this film. Because I know this was very different than I was expecting. The trailers lead on to some laughs, and like I figured that might be peppered throughout. This is borderline like Coen Brothers dark comedy at points, and absurdist black comedy. And I'm like, okay, this is a different kind of movie than I was expecting, and I'm really enjoying this. But I have to say, the first like 20-25 minutes or so, this film doesn't quite hit that yet, and it's still trying to find itself. And I feel like the film kind of lacks towards the beginning because it feels like pretty straightforward, just revenge thriller. And then the threads start pouring in from all different directions because there's so many subplots and storylines going on in here that honestly there's parts where Liam Neeson isn't even in this a whole lot. And at first I'm like, I'm not sure I like this because it does weaken the story at points because there's so much going on and trying to have some kind of cohesive story going on. It's stretched a little too thin. But what makes up for it and makes it still entertaining is the fact that a lot of these characters are really interesting and funny and different, and everybody has their quirks about them, and how well everything kind of comes together towards the end of this film is kind of remarkable on some level. But sometimes getting there is a little jumbled and a little too much going on. But everybody's game in this film from their performances. I have to say, Tom Bateman, who plays like the main gangster guy, he kind of felt like he was having that artificial American accent vibe going on for most of this movie. And it took me a little bit to get past that. I actually have to see if that was really his like he's actual American, because if he is, I'd be surprised, because it kind of sounds like, you know, fake. I'm going to have a fake American accent. Like a British actor who isn't really doing a good American accent. But for the most part, everybody's game in this film and doing a really good job and have their lines, have their zingers, have their personality bouncing off of each other. This story goes so many different places. It always keeps you on your toes. And that's a nice aspect that's unpredictable. And overall, I think Moland does a nice job of, after he gets his feet wet and really gets into the film, creating a unique thriller experience. And I think this film finally found its way a little bit towards the end of the first act of this film, and for the rest of it, I was really, really intrigued by this film and really into it. And it's unfortunate it took a little bit, but it was worth it by the time that I got there. And in terms of some of the other aspects of this film, the acting, everybody's game really does their job well, and they really work off of each other well. The cinematography, this is a gorgeous film. There's a couple of shots with some bad CGI backgrounds and stuff like that that didn't really work, but overall, how this is shot, the lighting, there's so many different points with some very ambitious and very, like, really inspired kind of cinematography in terms of the framing and camera work and how different shots are taken, how the lighting is done. And some of the dialogue can be a little corny and doesn't really work all the time, but I was surprised how much this dialogue worked and how many like funny moments. And it wasn't even just the dialogue that was funny. There was some good camera works and editing that brought some like decent laughs out of this. I'm like, holy crap, why am I laughing during this movie? But I did a lot and I really enjoyed it. And the music was inspired in this film. And there's so many different kinds of things, from synthesizers to just little string instruments and everything in between, working on so many different levels. It was a really memorable score, and I was really impressed with that. And one piece of storytelling that really made this film unique is every time somebody dies, a card pops up in black with their name and either a cross, a Star of David, whatever it is, and then their nickname in the movie. And to be perfectly honest, that kind of helped remember all the characters and stuff like that, and where they sat and where they lined up in terms of the story, because that could be a bit confusing throughout this film because there's so many characters. And there's one card towards the end of the movie that was absolutely hilarious. And honestly, there's a lot of depth and interest and character that goes into a lot of these. Even the villains and the antagonists in the film are interesting and they're more than just flat kinds of characters. And even this obnoxiously douchey young playboy drug lord guy that's the main antagonist of this film has some interesting aspects to his character. I do wish Liam Neeson was in this a little bit more and he had a little more time to flesh out some of his character and spend a little more time on screen. But overall, this was a really enjoyable experience. A decent thriller to start off this year. I would probably watch this again, honestly. I did really enjoy it. And those are my thoughts. Let me know what you think. And especially, or even talking about, it's like, maybe what's going on with Liam Neeson around this film, and share your thoughts on that and why you might not want to see this film. I think the film's worth it. I would recommend it. It is violent. I think you could tell that from the trailers. This is a violent film, but I think it's worth it as long as you could give some time to get into it a little bit. It'll make you laugh. My theater was laughing a lot during this film. But comment, subscribe, and let me know. And thank you as always for supporting your Wasteland reviewer.